Hello everyone, today we are going to talk about Glenn Gould's video of 35 minutes where he's claiming that Mozart at the end of his life was not such a great composer at all.
Why I think Mozart, especially in his later years, was not a very good composer.
Mozart, that we all know being one of the most famous and also the biggest genius of all time. So was he right or not? Glenn Gould was known to be controversial, that's what we will see in the video today. So first of all, let me say I'm a big fan of Glenn Gould, especially his Bach recordings. I like his Mozart and Beethoven recordings too. They're a bit more special, let's say. This video will be in 5 parts. First point is Glenn Gould was for sure a genius pianist, but wasn't always right in what he said and what he thought. For example, one of the things he said, he believed very strongly that in the years 2000, if I'm right, there would be no concerts anymore. So everyone knows he started a recording career, he stopped doing concerts because he didn't like the concert progress, he didn't enjoy it. And maybe that's the reason why also he thought concerts will die out, because he thought once recording will be more popular and grow, the concert will die. Well, we all know he was totally wrong, and maybe even the opposite, because today there are more concerts on the planet, classical concerts on the planet, than in Gould's time or before. So like with the concerts, it's not because Glenn Gould makes a point or makes a claim that he's right. That's the first thing. You have still to be criticized, to think critical about what he's saying. And it might be the same with Mozart. So to make his point, Glenn Gould is using this piano concerto number 24. Starting like this, a bit further in the first movement, he's showing a passage where it's a lot of arpeggios, scales, and repeating stuff, just modulating in simple ways that are not really special. Well, fair enough, but I find it not very strong and not very convincing to take one work to say a composer is not so great in a period of his life, because just think about if he said the late Mozart was not as great as we say, well, what about the Requiem, Don Giovanni, Magic Flute, his Mass in C, and all other compositions? I mean, there are piano concertos after this that are, in my opinion, really great. And yeah, I find it a bit peculiar to just take one spot and criticize this. I think this is not a very strong argument. Point number 3 is Glenn Gould saying Mozart was using popular, cheap tricks and didn't push a composition as far as he did before, some years before. And he's giving an example of a sonata he's playing, he loves in this one. By the way, in a very strange way. Yeah, he says that like Mozart is getting like, let's say, a pop artist where he's using cheap tricks. And I'm thinking two stuff about this. First of all, why not sometimes? I mean, it's not because you go sometimes towards the public making stuff a bit more easy, music a bit more easy to understand, that is necessarily bad, since you can do the other stuff, right? Since he's clearly proven that he could compose very well, and seems like every composer of his time agreed on this, and until today. I had actually a teacher in Brussels of harmony who once exposed why Mozart was such a great composer compared to Salieri. He was very convincing too, actually. So that's the other stuff. Yeah, Mozart can be popular, why not? He was probably also tired, and as a composer, you're never always on top of your maximum composition skills, right? You can have some a bit weaker work once in a while, which is actually very little with Mozart, I must say. If you compare with other composers, maybe Chopin is also like one like this, that has a very high quality in almost. So this is point 4. Mozart composed so much because he composed, let's say, from 5 to 35. He died when he was 35. So that's a 30 years career, which is a bit short compared to Liszt, for example, who lived 75 years. He had way more time to compose, and Mozart, for this little time, composed a lot. Like he composed 40 symphonies, 41. He composed 27 piano concertos, tons of quartets and trios. He composed over 10 operas. Like the number of compositions and the pages he filled is enormous. And like I just said, you cannot be on top all the time when you have this amount of compositions. And so he might have used sometimes some cheap tricks to get through. And think about concertos were mostly concert pieces he was writing to play himself. So he probably improvised once in a while and said like, okay, let's do this easy, bit more relaxed passage with arpeggios and have fun with scales and everything. And I'm coming there to another point. And that's actually the last of my 5 points, is concerto number 24, to be honest, is one of my favorite, and I'm sure I remember in the conservatory many people like this concerto. It's in C minor. I think there are only two, like he's saying in video two in minor. It's one of the greatest concerto, and again, it's not. I'm a bit a fan of complexity. I think complexity is a sign of quality most of the time, not always. But I also enjoy sometimes easy music, like let's take an example like Einaudi, right? I don't like anything or everything. No, I don't like everything for an Einaudi, but some pieces I like just to relax, just because I need sometimes some other music than complex music. And we could say the same with Mozart. And this is really a concerto like everyone is recording, playing for a reason, because it's a great concerto, because it's really beautiful. And the passage actually Glenn Gould is criticizing is maybe not so interesting, but it's really nice. And to be a bit mean, I would say, let's think about Glenn Gould compositions. Did anyone ever heard about Glenn Gould's compositions? Not so much as Mozart, I think. I mean, for sure, almost nobody ever heard Glenn Gould composition, which I'm sure are very complex and very intelligent. So like I say, I'm a huge fan of Glenn Gould as pianist. He was clearly a genius. Now, I think he was spending a lot of time alone, overthinking stuff, maybe didn't have enough strong partners to argue on his positions. And since he was very self-convinced and acclaimed pianist, maybe there's the danger of being very popular and very successful is you might sometimes think you know everything when you actually don't. So in conclusion, I must say I think Glenn Gould was wrong there. I can see his point. I'm sure we can understand that this is maybe a weaker place in his compositions, but the two things, it's still lovable, and the other thing, it doesn't mean Mozart became a bad composer at this period. He had a weaker moment where he improvised a bit and relaxed, which I think is totally fine. So let me know what you think about this piano concerto, and if you understand some of the harmony progressions there, let me know what you think, if you think they are weak, because I'm not such a specialist in harmony. I mean, I understood what he said, but I would not be able to debate why Salieri is a better composer than Mozart, for example, just by showing how they use harmony. So if anyone knows a bit more about this, I'm curious to learn about this. Let me know in the comments, and see you next video.